Mitchell. Paul Mitchell. We have Francina. We have Kathleen Prasad. We have Hakuden Inamoto Sensei. We have John Coleman. And we have Ms. Sule Karras. And I forgot, I've just been reminded, and please forgive me, William, we have Mr. William Lee Rand. Start. Can I have a hand in the air, please? Okay, let's go directly to Deborah.
Stand up.
Stand up, Deborah, please.
This question's for both John and yourself, Tony. For us as ARC members, the future of Reiki, yourself and Tony are the backbone of ARC Australia. What's the future of ARC in Australia, nationally and regionally, on the basis that after you and both of you retire?
Oh, retire?
or graduate.
Thank you very much for your question, Deborah. What a way to start.
Well,
do you want to go first, or shall I?
Oh, I think you need to hear from me for change.
Okay.
Well, actually, ARC isn't. I know what you mean by Tony and I being the backbone, but we do actually have a really strong committee of management for the last couple of years. But after we go, we've been working over the years at actually streamlining how ARC is run. Tony, as the administrator, as well as being the treasurer, we've done a phenomenal amount of work on the database, on systems, on paperwork, so that should somebody step into the line after I go, then hopefully it will run itself. That's our idea. We're not there yet. We still have a few years to go, but otherwise it's down to personalities. And let's face it, I'm irreplaceable.
Thank you, John. Now, if I heard the question correctly, I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability. ARC is an association that is run by its members for its members. The committee are just members of the association. 4 of us are lucky enough to be the executive committee, and we make some decisions on the members' behalf. But every year we stand down and we're re-elected to the place. Every member of ARC has the right to stand for election and become a member of the executive committee and the management committee. It would be really terrific if regional Australia could join us in that, because it always tends to be Melbourne and Sydney that people put their hands up, you know, because I think it's just that the idea of being on a committee in other people's minds means going to meetings and having to travel and that sort of thing. With ARC, we work a lot electronically. So we can have meetings all around Australia with Skype. We can connect with everybody. The thing is, work on the committee actually means work. For the future, that we're not quite ready to pack it in yet. We'll continue going until we have people who are on the committee who are willing to learn how ARC works and how ARC runs. And then we can guide them through for a year or 2 or 3, and then gracefully step aside and let them take over. So I see an amazing future for ARC. There are a lot of plans in my head about the future for ARC, as there are about the future for Reiki. I learned some time ago that I can do whatever I set my mind to, and I do that by blocking out negativity. I won't allow negativity in my life. And like that, for ARC, we've got a positive future. We just do require to have the membership come along with us and join in. I hope that answers the question for you. Okay. Deborah Dalziel, are you here? Would you stand up, please? Would you bring a microphone to Deborah? I'm going to give Deborah an opportunity to ask her question for the panel.
Hi everybody, and hi panel. My name's Deb, And I just want to thank you all so much for being here and talking. It has been just a fabulous conference, and I think really unique to have such a wonderful group of speakers. And so this is why my question is to you all, and is very about the future of Reiki. And I see you all, after all the presentations today and everyone on the panel, as beautiful representatives of Reiki on a world, perhaps I should say universe, platform. And I'd like to know, how do you all collaborate? How have you up till now? Or in Inamoto's words this morning, now is what you're doing now, which will be our future. So how are you looking to collaborate now so that can be our future? How do you do it as a panel together with each other, with other people? Because I think, for me, I'd love to know how you do that, because I think that is a key to what perhaps collaboration is for the future of Reiki.
Thank you, Deb. So I'll just ask if one of the panelists would like to start the reply.
Okay.
Franz has been pointed at.
It's a great question, Deb. I think we could do much more, you know. And for me, is really, I was just saying while we were sitting here quietly, we should do something like this in the US. You know, we should do this in the UK or somewhere in Europe. And I think this is really important as international Reiki teachers to start to hold hands with each other and say, let's walk this path together. Yes, there are differences. You practice like this, you do this, whatever. But the commonality is just so beautiful. And I think in that way, really seeing it as embodiment of the precepts. Let's forget all the differences. Do we use a symbol or not a symbol? Does it look different or not different? Were you trained with Bob or Betty or Johnny or Tashi or whoever? It doesn't really matter. But what really matters for me, and I see this in my own journey, and that the more I practice, the more I realize all the other things is not so important, but what is important, that Paul, Kathleen, all the others, that we all find this great bright light within ourselves, so that we become less angry, less worried, less fearful, and then we can come together in that space. And I think if we can learn from each other, I learned so much from Paul this weekend and from Kathleen and from the others. I think it's wonderful. So yes, I think we can do more on an international level as international speakers to hold our hands more. So I think for me, personally, I need to work on that more, definitely. And I hope some of the others will follow.
Thank you, Franz. William, do you have any thoughts on that particular question?
Oh, sure I do. Yeah, I think this whole movement is in the its beginning stages right now. I've gotten some calls from various other leaders of the community mentioning things like this, that we need to get together as leaders of the community and share ideas. And I think the first thing is really getting to know each other and becoming friends. Just hearing about another leader out there and hearing things about that person, you don't really get to know the person very well. I think that's what it takes. So there are others in the community that are starting to work in that direction. Certainly, I would like to do that. And in listening to some of the other presentations, unfortunately, I didn't get to hear all of them. It seems as though all of us are in agreement with that. So perhaps something can get started in that direction soon.
Thank you, William. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on?
Well, sure, I'd like to comment.
Paul.
Great question. And kind of what I've done until now is basically nothing. Well, that's not exactly true. But I feel like it's like we have to start in our own home, with our. One of the things that I have seen and I think just acknowledge is that whatever practice we're introduced to goes into this place in us which is where we hold it's sacred. It's our sacred place. And whatever we learn from our teacher is what Reiki is. And that's just true for everyone. So an awareness of this for me is like, oh, so I need to come to this place of no judgment, just appreciation and care for that experience of Reiki that is held in each of us. For me, that's kind of a developmental process. And then I think we need to come together. There's nothing like being together. There's nothing like it. And, that's an experience of Reiki. We can do lots of distant treatments. It's really different when you're present with a person. And so, I was happy to be invited to have this real opportunity for myself. And my colleague, Phyllis Furamonto, is really also pushing in this direction for collaboration and for mutual respect. And so, I'm going to carry that banner home. And Franz asked, we were having a little chat, and he said, this should really happen in the United States. And I said, yeah, that's a great idea. He says, are you going to organize it? And I said, no. So I'm not going that far. I'm not taking on the organization. But I will certainly support this movement.
Good answer, Paul. Thank you. Is there any of the other panelists would like to?
I'd like to maybe say something. I would say thank you again for inviting me. And for some reason, I have all these years, in a way, not felt part of the Reiki community because I do animals. And so I think a lot of people don't really understand that or consider it that valid of a thing to do. And so to be here and be invited, it has really, for me, my dream for animals is that they are honored and valued on this planet for spiritual beings and teachers. And this is sort of, it's as if the first step in that direction, the Reiki community embracing animals as beautiful spiritual teachers and beings that deserve love and compassion, and in a bigger way to be asked to speak among these eminent people just about animals. And so I think I feel a part of the Reiki community today. Thank you.
Well said, Kathleen.
All I wanted to say was the mutual respect that everybody is displaying. So it's the common ground where we find the inspiration with each other and for each other and for what we do. And because we have mutual respect, we allow ourselves to practice the way we practice, and we don't impose that on somebody else. So for me, that has always been, when I've been asked to deal with other groups or provide input to all sorts of different things over the years, for me, that's where I've always sat. And that's a place of integrity, and I think that's maybe another word that we can apply to what we've seen here as part of the Reiki community. So if we have integrity between teachers, where the mutual goal is that of respect and sharing, then that can only be of benefit. So I'm very much like Kathleen, so very, very grateful for the opportunity to have been here and to catch up with some old friends and to meet some lovely new ones. And that includes all the wonderful people out there that have come up to me and, we've had chats. It's huge. I am very full of gratitude. So it's been a wonderful experience. And I think if we bring all of that, it can all move forward.
Thank you, Sue. John, do you want to say something?
Yes.
Briefly.
When the first idea about this conference came, we decided to just think outside the box, unlike our last one, and to think big, and to think globally. And because globally is next door now, with all of the technology we have, we decided we would ask the most eminent, well-known, respected teachers of Reiki worldwide if they would honour us to come to our little conference. And I will say I was surprised, we were surprised and grateful that they said yes. They didn't know what they were getting in for, but that was okay. But it is a first step, and I do see it, coming together with the technology that we have, doing this on a worldwide basis, and sharing and bringing Reiki to the world. And I think we've made a first step here today.
Well said. Well said. Now, if you like, I'll take another question. So, okay, girls, you have vision down there, and there's a number of hands up in the air. So, if you want to, thank you.
Hi, my name is Katie, and I'd like to thank all of you for sending that rain out there. That was awesome. For the future of Reiki, like we're looking at all these different styles up there with different names. And Hayakatan, you mentioned the oneness beyond that, where we are enjoining together. My question to the panel is, how important is it for us to have the name styles as against the word Reiki as our importance?
So, thank you for your question, Katie. Would anyone like to? Sorry, was there a problem?
I didn't hear the end of the question,
Oh.
the punchline.
Could we just have the very end of the question again, please?
How important is it to have the name styles as the different types of Reiki as against just the Reiki?
So I think what the questioner is saying that, Reiki is Reiki, but we have these different names. We have different types, different methods. So is it important to have all these different things, or is it just everybody doing Reiki? I think that's what the question is. Franz, please. I'll come to you in a moment, William.
Yeah, I always see it like this. We often talk about lineages. And when I first started to practice, I was part of a more modern lineage. My first teacher was a pot-smoking hippie in Nepal. But anyway, what I've realized through lots of practice, that the real lineage, and they call this in a lot of different traditions in the East, your primordial lineage. And your primordial lineage is back to your inner great bright light. And it's a lineage we all carry inside of us, no matter if we practice the system of Reiki, yoga, Tai Chi, or we do nothing. We're just human beings or an animal or a blade of grass. We all have this primordial lineage. We all this beautiful, great, bright light. And again, I think to talk about what Yakuta Ninamoto was saying, that oneness beyond the lineage of, say, Usui Reiki Rehyo, Gendai Reiki, Komyo Reiki, whatever we call it, Smurf Reiki, beyond that is ultimately that we have to rediscover this primordial lineage within yourself. Oh, I am the universe and the universe is me. And then all the other lineages doesn't matter. They're just words. So I think the ultimate aim is really tapping into your primordial lineage.
Thank you, Franz. Yakutan-san, would you like to say a few words on this?
Okay, about the lineage, I always feel that our lineage, we have so many Reiki lineages. It's more like a clothes, okay? The clothes do not make a man or woman. More important, what we think, what we say, and what we do, okay? So lineage is a very important part of Reiki system, yes. But I always say, not everything. Okay? We have to value our lineage, but again, we have to think, oh, not everything. Okay? More important thing, my thought, my speech, my deed. Okay? So, well, you can have many, many lineages, but please remember that your lineages, do not make you a good Reiki practitioner or good Reiki teacher or master. Okay? It's up to here. Yeah. Okay? Okay, thank you.
Very well said, Sensei. Thank you. From Mark's point of view, we look to lineage and we look to the correctness of lineage with a view to 50, 100, 150 years' time when some student is attuned and they say, what is my lineage back to Yusui? And we hope to be able to have left a good lineage trail. That's what we look at. We don't look at lineage in any other way. That's what we're looking at. That it's, the trail back, so that in years to come, they can see that written down. In the beginning, it wasn't necessary to have a lineage because you had 1, 2, 3 teachers down from Takata. Everyone could repeat it, But we write it down now, and but we respect it as a history.
So like I mentioned, the old Reiki system, are offshoot of Usui Reiki Ryoho. Again, under one umbrella, one family. That's, we always keep in mind. Then, like I suggested, there will be no competition, no ego, okay, something like that, yes. First, teacher or master have to become aware of this, yeah. Then, usually teacher brainwash student, See, so, yeah, first, teacher or master are very, very responsible, for what, we share. So first, teacher or master must become aware of this kind of truth. Oh, one family. Okay.
Thank you, Sensei. William, would you like to comment?
Sure. Yeah, well, I think that, everyone that has Reiki is part of the same group. You could expand it even further. I mean, everyone that is a human being is part of the same group. And I think if you look at it like that, the lineage or the style that one practices isn't so important as the fact that we have Reiki. We help people, we're healing, we're contributing to the well-being of the planet, and we're all on the same path in that respect. So I think that we have to move beyond lineage in any sort of egocentric way and just see it as a part of what we do, but certainly not the focus.
Thank you, William. Just one point on sorry, Paul, please.
So I agree with everything that's been said. I do. And for me, it's also paradoxical in the sense that I just feel like it's part of, I don't know, my integrity to be clear about the practice that I'm offering students, because there's a choice. People can do research, but I don't want to set up a situation where somebody is coming to me for teaching, thinking they're, signing up for a different practice of Reiki. So, the connection, the respect, the essence of Reiki that is being provided by all these teachers is true for me. And I value that and respect that. And it's not, and at the same time, I feel like the student also deserves, in a sense, to know who they're going to and what they're looking for. In one sense, I never felt like I was not the author of the practice I was given. So I didn't really have the authority to change it. I always felt that my responsibility was as a carrier of what I received. Now, I can change that someplace along the way. That's okay. I can follow my own inner sense and what comes to me. And that's, for me, to be respected, and it's part of the evolution of the practice. And at the same time, I also want to honor this place of, oh, this particular practice fills me, and I want it to be available generationally, you know? So, you know, holding and living in the creative tension of this paradox is where I hold this question.
Thank you, Paul. Sue, would you like to?
Paul, I feel very much like you. I feel as though my responsibility as a teacher is as a custodian of the tradition that I received. Because it's not mine to change. As you said, you were not the author. And like you, who knows what might happen for me personally, because we all evolve and change. But what I can say is, for as long as I teach Reiki, if it's the tradition that I was given, every single student will know about that tradition. And just like if I'm doing a treatment on someone, I don't introduce anything else. I simply do a Reiki treatment in the method and the procedures that I was taught. And I feel in that way I am a custodian of what I was taught, and I am passing that on and honouring my teachers. So people do evolve and change. But for me, I'm happy to lay the foundations of my tradition with students, my teaching tradition, as it was given to me, and that can then be where they start their journey. I don't dictate, you need to, you know, your journey must be parallel with mine or reflect mine. I just pass on what I was given, and then it's up to them.
Thank you, Sue. I'm just going to momentarily stop asking questions from the floor to read out a question that has come in for Pamela Miles. And we actually contacted Pamela by email and have received an answer from her. So she may not be with us, but she's still awake. So this is the question. I don't know who sent this, but the question is, Pamela, you have been a great advocate for Reiki and instrumental in introducing Reiki programs in a number of hospitals in the United States. What do you put this success down to? As in, how do you convince hospital administrators to accept Reiki? Also, are there any Reiki practitioners in these hospitals in a paid capacity, or are they all volunteers as they are here in Australia? That's a very good question. So we popped this off earlier to Pamela, and we don't have a printer to print it out, so I got to read it off the screen. So everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
So Pamela's opening line is, this is as short as I could get it, which isn't very short at all. I hope it's helpful. Okay. It's a huge question. I never feel like I've covered it all, even in my 4-day Reiki and medicine intensive. But here's the blurb. There are no reliable statistics, but it seems that most Reiki practiced in hospitals is volunteer. However, there are paid positions. My goal is never to convince hospital admin to accept Reiki practice. Trying to convince or even persuade doctors is a grave strategic error. It will immediately discredit you, especially if you use spacious arguments, speculative mechanics of action, and poor quality studies. Doctors are critical thinkers who trust their own thinking processes. I have enough confidence in doctors' analytic abilities and in Reiki practice to simply give them a few pieces of relevant information in language meaningful to them, and then give the doctors the space to come to their own conclusions. As I always start a presentation with a few moments of Reiki touch for everyone in the audience who wants it. I always start the presentation with a few moments of Reiki touch for everyone in the audience who wants it. When critical thinkers make their own choice, they usually become strong advocates. Doctors see a lot of suffering in the course of a day, suffering they are powerless to address. It is commonly recognized in medicine that patients with spiritual resources, inner resources, tend to have better medical outcomes and be easier to treat. Reiki practice has been brought into medicine well in advance of research to support it. The body of research evidence for Reiki practice is underwhelming. A few students are interesting at best, but not... Sorry, I'm learning how to read. A few studies are interesting at best, but not compelling. My presentations in medicine are based on the psychological evidence that the response to Reiki practice includes shifting... Pamela... to parasympathetic nervous system, speak Irish, woman, which is the state in which the system's self-healing mechanisms engage. So she then has a link to an article which you're not going to get now, but that's Pamela's answer, and I think it's a damn good answer to the question. And I'm now going to say to the panel, is there anyone who'd like to pick Pamela up on anything she said? France.
I'm not going to answer it, but I'm going to ask Kathleen to answer it because she told me a story. She told me a story about someone, that doctor who sent her husband. Maybe, would you like to tell that? Yeah.
Oh, sure. Well, so many of you know from my talk yesterday, I've been through breast cancer twice. And about a year and a half ago, I had to go through radiation at my local cancer center. And at that time, I was assigned a radiation oncologist, and I had to go meet with her, and then I had to go every day for 8 weeks or whatever for my treatment. And so I met with her once a week, and she checked in with me just to see how I was feeling, side effects, talked to me, whatever. Very nice woman about my age. And so when I went in there and introduced myself, I gave her a copy of my book, Reiki for Dogs, and I told her I'm not gonna have any side effects from this because I'm gonna be doing Reiki every day, and I want to share this with you because this is what has gotten me through this. And I was very effusive about Reiki, and at the time she kind of, okay, that's great. I could just tell she was like, I don't want to discourage this woman because she's going through radiation, but at the same time, whatever. So, she took my book very graciously and she said, yeah, whatever you're doing, that makes you feel good, you should just keep doing it. So that was, never heard anything. Then this has been now a year and 8 months, and I get a phone call, and it's her. And she says, I hope it's okay I'm calling you, but I just read your book. And she said, my husband was diagnosed with a rare blood disorder. And the doctors, we've gone through everything, and the doctors said, there's nothing we can do. And he's very young. And she said, we just won't accept that. And she said, as soon as he told me that diagnosis, I thought of you. And I remembered how you said Reiki had helped you, and I knew I had your book somewhere, and I found it and I read it. And she said, and we really want to learn Reiki and maybe get a treatment. And I'm like, human treatment, what? And I'm like, oh. No.
The guy needs to wear a collar.
But luckily, Franz happened to be visiting doing treatments the next week. Whew. So I said, if your husband would like to come in and get a treatment next week and see how that feels for him. And then, I told her, this was right before I came here, and I said, if you're interested in learning, contact me. I have students, and we can work something out. And so her husband actually came in and got a treatment and had a beautiful experience. And she said that they both now want to learn Reiki. And so I'll probably be in touch with her when I get back. But I never in a million years would have expected that ever to happen. So you just never know.
So one of the reasons I asked Kathleen to tell this, because for me, I believe we have to be our own example, right? If you show in hospitals who you are, that you practice this just in your own example, like Kathleen did to her doctor, they see, oh, this is quite different. And then they come themselves. I see it like this. If you have a mountain and on top of the mountain is a fire and it's bright, and we live at the bottom of the mountain, and in the night we look up and we see a beautiful bright light, what are the people going to do? They're going to climb up the mountain and check out what is going on. So Kathleen showed her bright light when she went for radiation therapy. The doctor noticed her bright light, remembered that bright light a year and a half later and go, oh, now I sent my husband, now the time is ready. So the more we rediscover our own great bright light, the more that will attract.
Well said, both of you. I mean, I personally have had experience with medicine and Reiki, and when I was having my hip replaced, my surgeon was so insistent that I didn't do anything untoward for months afterwards, except I suppose lie in the bed and take morphine. And I said, well, I would like to continue with my Reiki. And he said, how do you do that? Is it tablet form or injection? So briefly explained to him what it was. And the net result was, because of the amazing Reiki that I received from friends all over Australia, they sent me home after 2 days. And they said, please go home, Tony, because you're embarrassing us. And they were referring to me as the Reiki freak at that time. Because from the operation on, no morphine, no drugs, no nothing. Because Reiki just took me through the whole thing, and I was terrified. But anyway, enough about me. So can somebody on the floor who'd like to place another question? Jackie. The microphone is on the way down. Jackie, if you could just stand up so you all get a good look. Wow.
My question is for William, but first I would just like to reiterate what Deb at the back said and say this has just been heart-opening, mind-blowing. Just hearing all of you and being able to be a part of this experience has truly, truly touched my heart, and I'm sure every heart here, so thank you so much. I have a question for William, and it's very similar to the question that Deborah beside me asked, because I believe I'm right in saying that the largest Reiki organisation on the planet at this moment is probably the International Centre for Reiki Training. So William, even though you've just come through what you've come through, what I'm asking is, when you no longer teach, how do you see the future of the International Centre for Reiki Training, and more specifically for Australia?
Thank you, Jackie. Over to you, William.
Okay, good. Question. Well, there's something called succession planning. That means that you're planning for your own demise. And certainly I'm doing that. It's called Living Trust, working with my attorneys to actually set this up so there will be a very smooth transition at the time of my passing. So that is pretty much set up. It would be a very easy transition if I become incapacitated or if I pass on. Now, the way that affects data, well, I suppose that there would be other teachers like down here to teach, so I imagine things will continue.
Thank you, William. Would somebody else like to pose another question coming? Amelia. Shy Amelia.
Well, hi. I'm not.
Keep it short.
I cannot keep it short.
Keep it short.
No. I believe that Reiki deserves better. Is it short enough? Should I continue?
Please continue.
Okay. I give a little bit of background. I am a scientist, and my dream is to do a proper research on Reiki and make it acceptable by the scientific community. From the...
I think you're going to get a well-deserved round of applause there.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Please.
Okay. From the 2 days, this 2 days conference, I'm a little bit disappointed because I think as Reiki speakers and Reiki practitioners and Reiki organizations, we do not value Reiki as we should. And I believe what is important here is not to keep saying in the conferences how good Reiki is, because we know how good it is. That's why we are here. And probably if we are thinking about the future of Reiki, is it the time to start questioning it? Not in a way to say Reiki is not good enough, but maybe in a way so that the world who are not Reiki practitioners or are not within this Reiki community can also hear us the same way that we are communicating. My question is, like, probably I am echoing Kathy's question that although there are different lineages and types or branches of Reiki, as a hospital manager, how would you expect him as a manager to have a Japanese kind of Reiki while another hospital says, oh, you're having Japanese kind, I'm having a Western one. Whew. You know what I mean? And, sorry, I keep it quiet, like short, but if we are going to do something, okay, we need all these eminent speakers, everyone as Reiki practitioners. If we are going to do something, we need to agree on a one structured, whole, complete book of Reiki. If wants to have chapters under difference, if any teacher or Reiki master wants to teach, then they will have, this is the whole Reiki about the world, the history and everything. This is the different things. And sorry, it was not short enough.
Yeah. Thank you, Amelia, very much for that. It's a very important question that you ask, and it's a question that deserves, I think, an answer from everyone that is willing to give one. I'm going to ask John Coleman, my president, to start us off, and then I'll give the rest of the panel an opportunity to speak. I'll just give them time to think about it.
Yes, it is a great question, and in the 10 or 11 years that I've been president of ARC, one of my main themes and aims has been the integration of Reiki into mainstream. And yes, there are many different forms of Reiki, many different practices, but my experience tells me that the scientific evidence that is available is not what they're really looking for as much as the quality of the practitioner. And therefore, providing a Reiki treatment in a hospital setting is a bit more important to them, in my experience, than the type of Reiki that's being offered. I provide Reiki treatments in a palliative care hospice close to me, and there are, on the other days of the week, other Reiki practitioners with different forms of Reiki to mine. But what the hospital management are concerned about is the quality of the provision of the treatment, that is standardized, that somebody's not coming in and using crystals or boogie-woogie, but that they're performing a standardized treatment, a Reiki treatment. And I think that's what it's going to be about, the quality of providing a Reiki treatment. And that's why these certificate courses and Sue's course and Reiki associations having standards, codes of ethics, codes of professional conduct, all of those things are top of the list for the hospital managements that I've been in contact with.
Thank you, John. Would any of the other panelists like to throw some input?
I see. I think it's interesting to do scientific research. I did a brainwave study in 2011, did a brainwave study 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C., and hopefully next year I'm working on doing a big study with EEG machines, etc., in the US. But it's a spiritual practice. We can say this honey consists of this and that, and it makes this and that, and blah, blah, blah. But it's not until I go like this, and I have the direct experience of it that it goes, oh, yes. We can say Reiki is love and compassion, but doesn't mean anything. We can measure brain waves and say, oh, these are the gamma, these are the delta, whatever. We can say, oh, a trick is like this and that. Doesn't ultimately mean anything. Ultimately, it needs to come from our heart. It needs to come through personal practice. There is just uploaded about a couple of weeks ago, a beautiful interview with Richard Gere and Mathieu Ricard talking about Buddhism and scientific studies. And it's really worth watching. Google it on YouTube. It talks about very much about kind of what we've been talking about this weekend. And Mathieu Ricard has done lots of study about mindfulness, like how it works in the brain. He's a very big advocate for that. And he says the same thing. Ultimately, it doesn't change a thing because we need to feel it in our own heart. And I think that is so important. And I think Paul said the same thing. Mrs. Takata said, practice, practice, practice. We can investigate a marathon. We can look at the muscles, we can look what is happening, we can look at the heart rate, but it's not until we run the marathon ourselves, that actually we're going to say, oh, this is what it does to me. And I think this is really important. Science will never understand, I think, the ultimate depth of a spiritual practice. I think it's impossible because that spiritual satori, or Ansin Ritsume, as Yakutin Inamoto calls it, is a direct personal experience.
Thank you, Franz. William, would you like to comment on the question?
Yeah, sure. Of course, we've got the Center for Reiki Research. We've taken all the studies that have been published in peer-reviewed journals and did a peer-reviewed summary of all the studies. We have those available. We've conducted our own research as well. We also have put together a workshop on how to get Reiki into hospitals. And of course, it is an important aspect of Reiki to be able to actually use Reiki in hospitals because people who are really sick are in hospitals and they're probably more in need of Reiki than any other group. In the US, there are over 800 hospitals where Reiki is practiced. And so there is, I believe, tremendous value in scientific research for Reiki because Reiki does produce results, and that's what scientific studies are about. So we recently did a study for Reiki and orthopedic pain. We had 3 arms. We had standard of care, we had standard of care plus sham Reiki, and then we had standard of care and Reiki, real Reiki. So quite an interesting study. The Reiki, the people who got the Reiki had a tremendous decrease in their pain that was shown on a graph. And so scientists as well as doctors and people in medicine understand a well-designed scientific study. So while, of course, there is a spiritual side to Reiki, they're interested in results. And so putting together studies that have to do with results, I think, is very important. Doing Reiki in a hospital, there's what could be called a hospital Reiki session. And so there's a certain way that a hospital would require people to do Reiki in the hospital. And so that information, of course, is quite valuable for people that would like to work in hospitals. And usually the hospital will have a training course to train people on how to function in a hospital environment and also how to provide a hospital Reiki session. So I think we're making great progress in that direction. Of course, scientific studies are expensive, require funding and so forth, but we are moving in the right direction with it.
Thank you, William. Amelia, I don't know if that's gone any way to answer your question, but I will just, before we move on, just ask, is there any other member of the panel who would like to comment on Amelia's question?
Just from a professional practitioner's perspective, there needed to be some common standards that consumers, for want of a better term, and therefore hospital boards and nursing managers, NUMs I think they call them, and all of those things, could look at and say, okay, so when I see this happening, that's Reiki. They don't worry about the branches. And so there's a document, remember when we did the Carroll stuff, Franz, all that time ago, where it has 3 different aspects, and it allows for the common ground between Reiki practices to be acknowledged. So the way that works is a Reiki treatment must have, a Reiki treatment must not have, and the last one, a Reiki treatment may have. And it's what's under those 3 headings that informed staff and clients, patients, however you'd like to call them, could look at and go, oh, okay, I'm comfortable with that. So that's another aspect. The scientific aspect is interesting. We have a CSIRO scientist who did Reiki in Canberra a number of years ago, who had to be taken off experiments where he was dealing with seeds and things because whatever he touched grew and just... So, you know, so there are some interesting, unexpected proofs that sometimes scientists are finding for themselves. And I have great trust that in time, the shift that I'm beginning to see will move even more. And when there is more interest, there'll be more interest from the scientific community as well. And that's when I think we'll see the studies happening. But thank you for saying that you expected better, because we can always improve.
Thank you, Sue. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Why do we have more and more Reiki use in the hospital setting? Why?
Because it's needed.
Without scientific or medical proof or whatever, it works. Always good, positive result. Okay? That's why Reiki can be accepted. No? Yes. Yep. So, like Usui Sensei, the founder, he was asked, why Usui Reiki Ryoho works? He said, I had no teacher, okay? I didn't study to obtain healing ability, but I accidentally realized that I was given a wonderful gift, mysterious healing ability. When I was sitting on the mountain, Kuramayama, Then, even though he said, the founder of Usui Reiki Ryoho, I cannot explain it, why it's work, okay? Because he had no teacher, he didn't study, but he said, our science can prove how it's work. Not yet, maybe in the near future, okay? Yeah. So, again, one of the future for Reiki, yes, in a very near future, with our science, we can maybe prove why, how it's work, okay? On a, of course, therapeutic, aspect. Then, one more aspect we have, Reiki Ryoho, spiritual one, yes. That's, like Franz said, we have to, directly experience or, we don't understand at all by using our left brain, thought, thinking, okay? Yeah. We have to feel it, yeah, okay? Not here, but here, Okay, yes. So I think on a kind of a physical level, yes, in the near future, yes, our science, can prove why Reiki works. Yes.
Thank you, Sensei. Thank you.
There's one argument. There's one.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
Paul is going to-
Paul, go ahead. Yeah.
I'd just like to add a little piece in terms of kind of the history of the kind of rise of complementary and alternative healthcare being available and offered in the United States. And that was, an article some years ago, and I'm sorry, I can't give you the exact percentage because I don't remember, but I'll make something up just so you know and that I made it up. But it was in a magazine, a very common magazine that a lot of people read, which was a study of how many people went to alternative and complementary healthcare practitioners, how many went, and then how many went without the knowledge of their doctors. And it was a really high percentage. And that information was not overlooked by the medical and the healthcare professions. And so, alternative and complementary healthcare in the United States has begun to flourish because people are asking for it. The people in the hospitals are asking for it. So, that's just another thing to factor in, to be aware of. People now actually, interact with their doctors in terms of what they need or what they would like. And those are powerful voices.
I think so too. I think you make a really good comment. And for me, that's really about the proof is in the pudding. When you practice and someone does a treatment, or you practice and you go to your doctor and you say, actually, what do you think about the system of Reiki or practicing? And they go, what? But it's that word of mouth, whereas people in the US, if I teach a class in the US, say you have a group of 30 people, and we can ask who does volunteer job in a hospice, hospital, or at a vet. 99% of 30 people, 28 people will raise their hand. You ask here, one person. So, but therefore it needs to come from yourself. You need to step forward to your local community and then share it. So yeah, I see that too.
At my annual checkup every year, and I just do that just to stay in touch. My doctor goes, oh yeah, your blood pressure's still 110/65 and your heart rate's still 60 and you still look 15 years younger than most of the other people I see your age and you don't need anything from me, great, bye. And then he says as I'm going out the door, and I bet you still do that Reiki stuff, huh? He's a judo practitioner, so.
I think sorry, John, yeah, go ahead.
What I like to say is that not many people may know this, but the common aspirin was being used with great benefit by doctors and being prescribed for 70 years before science actually figured out how it worked. And therefore, I believe in time, science will catch up and find out, if necessary, how Reiki works.
John, Tai Chi, Yoga, Qigong was practiced for 5,000 years before science caught up that it works. Right?
In Ireland, but I won't go there.
Look, it's an important issue, but it's not the only issue. I will just bring this particular piece to a close by telling you very briefly a little story, personal story. I'm 63 years of age now, and for 50 of those years I was diagnosed with grand mal epilepsy. I was on drugs to beat the band to keep me from having seizures. A short time after I started practicing Reiki, I went for my annual EEGs, and they said, yeah, we're having trouble locating the problem in your... And they said, we'd do a little test, you know, take you off the drugs for a few months and see what happens. And they did. And then 5 years later, they concluded that obviously I had been misdiagnosed. But, you know, I said when I declared that at the meeting of ARC people, I said, you know, I never asked Reiki to take away my epilepsy because I didn't think that was important. I'd learned to live with it. It took it away without telling me. I am very grateful for that. I'm basically drug-free these days. But there are people who suffer extremely and they need Reiki. And we got to give them the Reiki. But we give them the Reiki. We don't need to tell them how we learned it, who we learned it from, what the history is. We are Reiki. Human beings are Reiki. Animals are Reiki. We forget that sometimes. We don't think of, well, I don't think of animals as being any different from us. We are all the same. We come from the same source. We are one. We are unique. We are all the same and we're totally different. But what binds us all together is the Reiki. That's my belief. So I'm now going to move on to another question before I get into trouble. This is a question that's come in for you, William.
Okay.
There's no name on it. The question is, what is the difference between the Reiki systems you teach, as in Karuna Reiki and Reiki, Holy Fire Reiki?
I imagine what's being asked is what is the difference. I wonder about the difference between those two, or the difference between those two and what you would call regular Usui Reiki. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think actually they're saying, sorry to interrupt you, I think it's,
Yeah.
they've given the examples of Karuna and Holy Fire, so I would imagine they would include your other types of Reiki, systems of Reiki as well.
Well, Holy Fire was a system that I was given. I wasn't seeking it almost 2 years ago. And it's an energy that works with Usui Reiki. It works with Karuna Reiki. So we have our Holy Fire Usui Reiki. We also have our Holy Fire Karuna Reiki. So it was an enhancement, just to improve the quality of the energy we feel.
Thank you, William. I hope that satisfies the person who asked the question. I have no idea who that is, but thank you for the question. I have a question here for Paul Mitchell. Sir, this question again comes from Anonymous, but very neat handwriting. So the question for you, Paul, is could you please expand on your statement, Reiki returned you to your religion? Now, I'm not, okay, meaning, sorry. Okay. So can you please expand on your statement, Reiki returned me to my religion. Mingling with the other members of the conference confirms that our cultural influences, differences, or effect on... Is the person who wrote this question here? No? Okay, so are you getting the gist of the question? This person wants to know, could you expand on your statement, Reiki returned you to your religion? Because you made that in your statement yesterday. I think I know where they're going.
I did. So I think I began my talk yesterday. Yesterday. It's not a week ago. With this, that I just have watched how Reiki works in a lot of people's lives, like many of us have over the years. And, what I see is that that each of us has our own path in life, our own spiritual path. And it has different aspects. Different people have different aspects that feed their soul, or feed their spirit, or feed their spiritual life. And you know, it's a great example is I think from Japan. One of my colleagues said, you know, at some point, she said, you know, when you're in Japan, you can't point to someone and say, well, they're Buddhist or they're Shinto or they're Christian, unless, you know, they're in the family of Buddhist priests or they're, you know, that. But that you know, Japanese have always had the opportunity to have their own blend, which is really different to understand from a Western point of view, whereas you have to be this or that. Yeah? And a colleague of mine was in Japan recently, and I don't know, she was just sitting with an elderly lady, and they were chatting, and I don't know how this came up, but the elderly Japanese lady says, oh, yes, yeah. Japanese are born Shinto, they marry Catholic, and they die Buddhist. You know, so, I mean, that was just a lovely sharing, yeah? So, I was born Catholic, you know, and I went all through Catholic school, and in fact, I was in the seminary for a while, studying to be a priest, and I was a religious brother for a while, and then I left and got married and had kids. But, and Reiki came into my life, and my first conscious experience of Reiki was, oh, this is what divine energy feels like. That was my first conscious experience. And so, in a sense, kind of my religious upbringing suddenly made sense in a whole different way. But I didn't go to church anymore for 25 years. And then I just got in touch with this part of me that was longing for something that was missing in me. And I eventually was able to put my finger on it. And it was, you know, to be part of a faith community that I needed to expand or reconnect with a prayer life and meditation, and also liturgical connections, and that happened because somebody, I had a reading, because I was struggling, I had a reading by this wonderful person who said, when's the last time you were on retreat or a guided journey that you weren't guiding? And I said, 30 years. She said, it's time to go. So I ended up doing a 10-day silent retreat in a Trappist monastery, and that's where everything came together. And I just knew that that being Catholic again in an active way was part of my spiritual journey. And Reiki, of course, is very central to that. And I find nourishment in teaching, generally from the body of Christian mysticism. That's what feeds me now. But that's how I got there.
Thank you. Paul?
Can I tell you one story? A short story?
Yes.
I was leading a retreat. I do these 4-day silent Reiki retreats, and my wife attended. And somehow, I can't remember what I asked, but she told this story, which maybe you'll like. She was born Catholic, had a longing to have union with God. You know, as a little kid, she'd get up early and ride her bike to Mass every morning and then come home and have breakfast and go to school. And she just kept reaching for that connection. She went to university, had a double major, theology, still looking, and psychology. And then she took Reiki. And Reiki gave her the connection with God that had been her lifelong longing. That's what she said. And then she said, and I wanted to live the teachings of Jesus. And so she became a Tibetan Buddhist. And that's her journey. She's
her journey.
A Reiki master Tibetan Buddhist.
Kathleen, I have a question here for you, which is actually a bit two-pronged. So it asks, can animals be attuned to Reiki, or are they already naturally attuned? So that's a pretty straightforward one. And the second part is, you mentioned yesterday that animals are our teachers. Can you just explain a little more about what you meant by that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a hard one to do in a small way. I'll try to. I'll start with the first or the second part, which is animals are our teachers. And for me, what I really see it as is that they're more unified with nature, with the wisdom, the ancient wisdom of the earth, which we have gotten so separated from. So in a Reiki space, when we open our hearts and we touch hearts with them in that wisdom, it changes us. It deepens our own experience. It enhances our connection because they're there with us, our partners, helping us. We have that heartfelt intention to connect. We connect with them, and there's this deepening of that ancient wisdom within ourselves. So also, if we look at the precepts, if a lot of times when I teach the precepts in my classes, I'll tell stories of animals who've taught me the precepts. So they're like a living embodiment. You know, I can use the story of a shelter dog that by all means should hate people, what's happened to them. And they have no anger to people. They love people. They're not worried about what happened before. They're ready to start their life with a new family, get adopted. You know, so many animals I've met over the years, of course, they're always, be humble. They're always in a space of humility. They're always in a space of gratitude. Basically, they're always present, whereas we aren't so much. So there are teachers in so many ways spiritually. The attunement question for me is really, it's more about the ritual, I would say. And for people, ritual is very important for us to help us to connect to that spiritual space of well-being. And so the Reiju, or the attunement, is a very powerful experience for us. In my experience with animals, sitting opposite an animal and opening your heart is as healing as you could ever be with an animal. But if we say, okay, now I'm going to take my cat and put him on a chair. Now hold still, don't move. Now I've got to do these things. Okay, where are you going? Come back, sit down. Okay, now hold still. We've got to do these. It's like we're trying to put our human dynamic about what it means to share healing, to open up a deep space, we're putting that ritual onto a species where it doesn't make sense for them. It's like, why bring an animal out of their environment and put him on a table and try to give him a Reiki treatment? Because that's what humans do. But that's not who you're with. So why not stand in the pasture with the horse and be in their space with them and let them open your heart? And we both get healed in that space. And the other part is, traditionally, attunements are really about from teacher to student. So if anyone should be giving an attunement, I think my horse needs to be attuning me. My dog needs to be attuning me. And I'm not talking about the system of Reiki. I'm talking about to a deeper compassion, a deeper awakened state of life, to a deeper understanding of unconditional love. to a deeper connection in the universe. So, for me, it just isn't. It's not part of what I do with Reiki.
I sort of imagine if I was an animal, I think I'd say, why are you offering me something that I don't need? I've already got the love and the Reiki.
Yeah.
I don't need an attunement, it's purely human.
Well, I think also traditionally in Japan, it was called Reiju. And Reiju, if you literally translate it, it means a spiritual offering. Mrs. Takata actually called it an initiation. And only after Mrs. Takata's death did it become attunement. And I like the word Reiju much better, a spiritual offering. We're sitting in that space of the spiritual offering. And that also means there is nothing to give, nothing to receive, and there's no gift. We're just being together in that space of oneness. Because as soon as we say, I think you need to receive this, there's already a separation, and therefore true love cannot shine. So, Reiju as a spiritual offering, we have to look what is spiritual and what is offering. But as soon as we say, I need to attune you to something, and as John was saying, or Tony, I have that same problem.
We can be interchanged.
That's true. What is there to give what you have already? Right? And ultimately, Reiju is the same thing. It's love, it's compassion.
Thank you, Franz. I have a question for the entire panel now. Oh, sorry. Sensei.
Message from Usui Sensei. Usui Sensei say, not only human being, animal, bird, insect, plant, they have their own healing ability. Okay? Yes. So not only human, So maybe cats and dogs, maybe they use a tongue, Yeah? When we cut the tree, what happened?
It bleeds.
Yeah, kind of liquid come out.
Yes.
Yeah? They are healing themselves, even tree. So every living being has their own way of healing themselves. Of course we have, Yes. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you,
the word from Usui Sensei. Yes.
Thank you indeed.
Yeah.
This question is for the panel. It's a statement and question from Liesel. Thank you all for your honesty and compassion, for your open interpretation of how to deliver Reiki to the ones that seek it. I have received gems from each of you. I am curious whether each of you have received gems from each other.
Oh, yeah. Yes, and from comments from you people and all of that. Every single time I'm involved in an event or a gathering or a class or even on an aeroplane sitting next to the person, talking. I am not a teacher, I am an ongoing student. It's just that I happen to help some other people on the way as well. I am constantly learning, constantly, and I love that expression, receiving gems. And it's something where I feel enormous gratitude every single day of my life. And I never wanted to be a teacher of Reiki, but Reiki gave me so much. It was the only way I could see when I was asked, would I learn to teach? I didn't seek it. I kind of went, oh, okay. This is how I can give back. But the interesting thing is, the more that I give in the service of Reiki, the more that I learn and I receive. And when it's a cycle like that, there is a constant feeling of gratitude. And Thank you.
So, John, can I just go to you?
Well, actually,
have you
my
picked up any gems over the last 2 days?
well, the simple answer is yes, but the typical John answer, I'm afraid, that some of you have come to expect of me, and therefore I feel obliged to deliver, is because I come from the Emerald Isle, I have picked up so many gems this weekend. Thank you.
William, I know that, William, you've been listening in since Saturday morning, and you've heard most, if not all, of the presentations. I know you haven't physically been able to meet everyone here, but I'd say you've been tuned in, if you pardon the pun. So have you found or picked up any gems from your fellow Reiki teachers?
Certainly I have, yes. In fact, I think I began getting gems right from the moment that you asked me, well over a year ago to be part of the convention. But I was able to listen to Paul Mitchell and Pamela Miles and Yakuta Inamoto. I certainly got a lot of value from listening to their presentations. I've had communication with Franz Stein and also Kathleen Prasad. And so while I did get a chance to listen to their presentations, certainly we have interacted in a way that has provided value, gems, as you say.
Thank you, William. Thank you. Sensei, have you found any gems?
Yeah. Jewel,
Precious stones
precious
or
stone.
teachings?
all over. Yeah. I see gem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Absolutely. As I said earlier, it's just an honor to be able to see all of these people in one place and to feel who they are. I think, as Paul was saying, it's so different to be with somebody than to read their words or to, see a video or, whatever. It's completely different to be present. And I just, it's just been an experience of learning and wisdom from each. And I can see why each of these people have such a huge following, because they are such beautiful, amazing people. It's beautiful that they are speaking Reiki to the world.
A collection of shiny stars.
Yes.
All of them. All of you. Each and every one. Franz.
I always see a teacher as a student and students are teachers. It's like, again, if we place the teacher here and the student there, we never learn. We need to come together in that non-duality and always share. So yes, I learned lots from Paul, Kathleen, Yakutan-san, William, Tony, John. I learned everything now it's beautiful just to share that space with everybody. It's really great.
Just before I go to Paul, just on Thursday when I walked into the hotel for the first time, because I've not been here before, the atmosphere was cold. The staff were beautiful, but there was nothing. By Friday night, my whole body was tingling because the energy was just alive. And I think it has remained alive for me to this very second, and it's going to go on for a long time after I go home. So thank you from me. Paul.
The woman who was doing room keeping, I bumped into on my way to the lift. And I said to her, "Oh, you must be working hard." And she said, "Oh, it never ends. And then she said, "But your group make it easy."
Yeah, one of the things that I always go back to is that, I have this title of Reiki Master, but for me, I'm always a student of the practice, and to be able to be with other incredibly committed students to the practice is just lovely. And to be together physically, to be able to to get the whole person and the whole being is an amazing gift. Yeah, so I've gotten a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We're running out of time, right? I mean, there are so many questions here. We're going to have to compile them all and send them on to each of you and maybe publish a book. But William, I have one last question for you. Prepare yourself. This is for William Lee Rand. Reiki Level 3A, Advanced Reiki Training. Where does 3A fit in? Traditional training covers Reiki 1, 2, and 3.
Well,
Where does 3A fit in?
That after Takata passed on, there were some of her masters that did actually teach. They broke up level 3 into 2 parts, an A and a B. And so I was following after that formula when I started way back, in 89. So I was simply following that formula of having a 3A and 3B. So the advanced Reiki trainees like the 3A, you get the master symbol, the attunement for it, but you don't learn how to teach. And then in the 3B, that's where you actually learn how to do the teaching.
Yeah, so like 3A is basically you become a master practitioner.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and then a full-blooded master teacher when you do the B.
That's right, yes.
Okay, thank you, William. Look, I just want to ask Kathleen another quick question, just because I love hearing your voice. This one, why don't they put their names on? Okay. What are your thoughts, Kathleen, on the number of... sorry, I can't read. Okay, so I'm being prompted. It's the second one. Read the second one. Can you explain what it means when a horse nips or bites you when you give Reiki? Because you got a feral horse.
Nips and bites you.
I think that's pretty obvious. Back up. This is what we do. I had this experience in England actually recently. We want to help so badly that we go right up in the space of those animals. We're not even caring about their sensitivities or their preferences because we're here to save the day. And so sometimes they have to nip us and bite us to get us to be listening. There was a horse that had laminitis that had severely sore feet. I explained to everybody we're going to go in the pasture with these horses, and they have bandaged feet. They're very sore, but the Reiki really helps with their pain. But don't approach them. Stay 10 to 15 feet away and just focus on your practice. So one of the students couldn't resist because she wanted to help so much, and she went over and she started touching the horse. She started touching the shoulder, then she touched the knee, then she tried to touch the foot, and the horse was so crippled he couldn't really move away. So he didn't bite her actually, but he was closing up, you could see, and I kept looking at this going, she's gonna notice he's telling her to move back. She's gonna notice, but she didn't. And so I came up to her finally and I said, as soon as I touched her arm, she said, he's in terrible pain. And so I said to her, okay, first of all, let's take a step back. And I said, now, I want you to go deeper than the pain. I want you to stop looking at what's wrong. I want you to see what's right. And what's right is this horse is a beautiful soul, a beautiful bright light that is perfect even now in this suffering, perfect and beautiful. And now we're going to say, you're beautiful. I love you. All is well. And almost immediately the horse went, started licking and chewing, relaxing. And she couldn't believe it because we were 15 feet away. And we weren't trying to push Reiki on the sore feet. She couldn't believe it. So I think that the horse is saying, back up, give me space, and see me for who I am. Don't define me by what's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for us because, and again, we mean well.
But that must have felt like an assault. The horse must have felt like it was being assaulted. Because nobody likes to be touched inappropriately. even for the best of intention. Thank you, Kathleen. There is a question here, and the questioner has been very clever. So, one question broken down into 3 parts. And I think he knows exactly who I'm looking at. And this is directed towards France. And I'd say that if you were to answer these, there's 3 parts, and then the second question, we'd be here for about 4 hours. Would you like to know what?
Keep it simple.
Okay. So, first question, part A. What are the things or methods you need to do in order to reach your true self?
That really depends on you. I mean, really, that's really simple, because we can say it has to be the system of Reiki, but some people like Thai food, some people like potatoes, some people like Dutch pancakes. Choose something you like. Choose something you feel good to. Choose a teacher or a guide who you feel a good connection with. Therefore, as Yakuten-san said, there is no competition. Find something, oh, I like this, because then the practice becomes much more playful. If it's forceful, you're never going to rediscover your true self, because it becomes a bore. So find something what suits you.
Okay, you ready for B? So B goes, can you call another name such as pure consciousness for true self?
Yeah, pure consciousness, God essence, your inner light, any kind of word. Chokurei in Reiki 2 actually traditionally also stood for true self, all lots of
Buddha
different
nature.
things. Buddha nature, Buddhahood.
So moving on then rapidly to C. When we seek our true self, must we learn to give up the following things, such as 1, ego, 2, detachment?
3, chocolate.
And chocolate. We must, most of all, give up seeking.
Thank you, friends. I'm just going to, because I like Billy a lot, and he's come a long way to be here, from all the way from Singapore. And because he came all the way from Singapore, Angie said, you're not going on your own, so she came with him.
And won a prize.
Yes. So just to finish then on Billy's last question, because we're at 5:05 now, so we need to start a wrap up and have the closing. Is spiritual love incorporated in the practice of Reiki precepts? And if not, why not?
I think so.
I think everything. Love is everywhere.
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago to get out of my head and into my heart, because that's the only place where nobody lies to me.
Love is in the air, everywhere you look around.
One of the ways that I look at the principles for myself and is just kind of this image of heart opening, heart closing, okay? Worry, anger, failure to honor, not being honest, being ungrateful, not being kind. They're all ways that I close my heart. So the principles are this guide for me to continued heart opening. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. I'm just going to ask each of the panelists a very simple, straightforward question. And you can answer it as simply as you want to. My question to each of you is there a future for Reiki? Let's start with William, because we have to let that man go to bed eventually.
Yeah, well, of course there's a future for Reiki. Reiki is a very popular practice. It works, and it fulfills so many areas of a person's life that certainly there is a future. It will continue.
Thank you, William. Paul, is there a future for Reiki?
Absolutely. It just continues to grow. So Reiki keeps spreading. So it's not getting smaller, it's getting bigger all the time.
I'll keep John. France.
I give a different answer. Haha. For me, Reiki means true self. What has always been here since beginningless time will always be here since and until something happens. So it's always there, and it always will be here. There is no coming or going.
Kathleen, is there a future for Reiki?
I would say, looking over my 17 years as a Reiki practitioner, and in the beginning, people thinking, you do Reiki on your dog? What?
Nut
You
job.
know, and now training, I travel the world and train people to work solely with animals. I'd say that's a pretty big indicator that there is a future for Reiki, and it includes lots and lots of animals.
Sensei, is there a future for Reiki?
Of course. We are here as a Reiki practitioner. Like I mentioned, the future is happening now. Okay? Yes.
John?
Yes, there is a future for Reiki. And if I could just say, the future for Reiki is here in this room. The future for Reiki is you. All of you beautiful, wonderful delegates who give all of this time, commitment, and dedication to this wonderful practice of Reiki. You and we are the future for Reiki. Reiki will do its own thing. Reiki will, as Fran said, and as Hayakaden said, is there, always will be there, is now. But the future for Reiki, as we interpret it, is you. So,
Sue. Sorry, John. Sue. Is there a future for Reiki?
What they said, but in addition, professional practice as it's viewed by outsiders, it will only ever really be accepted in a big way and valued in a big way if we practice with integrity, humility, compassion, and kindness. And kindness and compassion are not exactly the same things. And within that compassion, where we're told in the precepts, be kind or be compassionate to every living thing, we so need to include ourselves. We need to be kind and compassionate to ourselves.
Well said. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the future for Reiki. All of us. My thanks to all of you, and I would like to say thank you to Sue Lake Harris. Thank you to John Coleman. Thank you to William Lee Rand. Thank you to Hayakaten Inamoto Sensei. Very special thank you to Kathleen Prasad. A thank you to Franz Steen. And a thank you to that good Catholic on the end of the row, Paul Mitchell.